I am Todd Benson. Welcome to Base Camp Wisdom, a podcast with people who weathered the storms, traveled the hard miles, and made it to the other side. In this podcast, we're going to explore life lessons, valuable insights, proven tools and experiences that will help guide you on your own leadership journey. So grab your cup of coffee, sit back and listen to some seasoned Sherpas who've not just weathered the storms, but they've made it to the other side. Welcome to Base Camp Wisdom. Hey, Todd here, Base Camp Wisdom, with my good friend David Skidmore. We've been getting together the last few weeks and having coffee and having fun. And so, what's latest with you? I heard that someone may have put a little calf in your decaf before we hopped on here.
Todd Vincent, Base Camp, honored to be here. This is, I have arrived. So first off, excited about that. Secondly, I'm a guy who does not do caffeine after 1 p.m. And I asked, could we make this, can we make this decaf? And I think that the barista at the coffee shop, which I will not name, Clarity, I think they had a vendetta on decaf. So no telling what's happening for me, except that I'm pretty sure I'll be awake until 4 a.m. because that's what happens if I do caffeine after 1. Yeah.
And it's 2. So my phone starts ringing or hearing text. I'm not answering.
All right, let's go.
So, man, what's your drink of choice when you go over to Clarity? When it's not decaf.
I am a fan of their pour overs. I think that their pour overs are nice. You know, like there's something that you know this because Iote, I've had many a cup of coffee in your coffee shop, many a pour over there. But I think that Clarity does a pour over very nicely.
They do a lot of good, well, and it starts with the origin. They've got some great origins, and they're light and bright, and they sure are fun in a pour over.
Origins are important, and how's that as a link into a leadership conversation?
I'm sure we can weave in an analogy in there somewhere. Origin does make a big difference. I'm sipping on a pour over here too. It's Way Mango from Guatemala. It's our byways.
I've had byways. I drank a lot of byways over the past few years.
Man, it's just smooth. It's just, it just kind of hits it right down the middle. You got some milk chocolates. You've got some floral, but not too light and bright. So that's usually how I start out my mornings at my house, and then get a little crazier with it as the day goes on.
Todd, I got to ask you this. I've never asked you this. I know it's your podcast, so I'm kind of hijacking it. I don't think that this is the way it's supposed to work. But my question is that what's it like in the morning to drink coffee and it's the coffee that you found, like it's your roast. Like you're the one who came up with byways.
Mm-hmm.
There's a specific style to it. A lot of us enjoy that coffee. A lot of us enjoy drinking your coffee. But for you specifically, you're actually getting to enjoy what you made. What's that like?
It's pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie, but it's there's a lot of work that came along with that too, and so that didn't happen by itself. I mean, there's a lot of other people that helped with the sourcing, like the folks at Anthem and John Hanson and his crew in Kansas City. I mean, the way it's roasted, all of it. But man, it makes it fun. The whole reason for starting a coffee company, roasting, and a coffee shop was just to be able to pour into people. I've been sitting here talking at coffee bars, and leadership is a big thing to us. Self-leadership even more so, because man, you can't give away what you don't have. And you and I were just kind of talking earlier about almost like tweets. 140 characters. What are the things that you've learned on your journey? Before we get to that, man, for folks that don't know you, a lot of them are here in Oklahoma City, but give me a little bit of your background and a little bit of your story.
Yeah, a little bit of my story, my origins, if you will. Going back to that coffee concept, for me, growing up in a family that was always focused on other people, that was a lot of the pursuit. That shaped a lot of how I approach life. My dad is a preacher. He's also a communication guy. And so I started slipping me cassette tapes. That'll tell you how old I am. Cassette tapes, middle school, high school, listening to guys like John Maxwell. And as the years went on, I got to be involved in a lot of different things, from speaking at, conferences classes and things like that early on, and like probably way ahead of schedule, like college age. And then as time went on, getting to do some creative work as well. So working with some organizations. I did work for, dare I say, the local coffee shops villain. I worked for Starbucks back before I got really connected into great coffee. So don't judge me on that.
And
I
they
haven't
paved the
been
way. They
local
paved the way.
coffee. Yeah, yeah. And many great moments at Starbucks over the years as well. Got to do a lot of different work with both Starbucks and then as well Apple. And then ultimately I started moving into kind of the creative world. I would say both the creative and the world of leadership. And so that's one of the things that I really enjoyed. We got to know each other originally through Salt. In fact, Iote was opening on the weekend that you were at the retreat. I was getting to
I
work
got
there
some
then.
pushback on
Yeah,
that because you should be here for the opening. I said, "Hey, I'm not going to be here."
yeah.
It was probably one of the first times that I had made me a priority and invested in my own well-being. But yeah, I did catch a little flack for that for not being around.
You caught a little flack, but do you remember this? Hillsong United comes in to your shop that weekend, just about it, and then one of the guys is wearing your shirt there in front of like 20,000 people
Oh,
at.
Benjamin is rocking this blue shirt with a buffalo on it, and it's all over the screens. And our phone starts blowing up, and I'm going, "How did you get a shirt on?" He said, "He walked in and he got it." It's pretty.
Yeah. So that was our connecting point. I really got developed a lot as a leader through my own SALT experience,
What
but
class
as
were
well
you?
over the years. I was class 11.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
16 in the legacy group, or what do they call it? It's a
Yeah. Your signature. I was one of the
signature. It's a nicer way of saying an old guy's.
yeah. That's a nice way to say it. Signature definitely beats salt and pepper. So, nobody's
We all
trying
know
to.
what it means, though.
I'm going to get like
Barclays.
mail coming in. If anyway, so uh, all of that led though in 2022. I stepped out, started a business called Leader Growth, and so I get to work with leaders, get to develop them. Also have the honor of working with some employees here at the state of Oklahoma, and so just have a fantastic time both pouring into small business owners, organizational leaders, state employees. And I will tell you this, Todd, the past 3.5 years have been the wildest ride of my life to this point. So quite a journey. Yeah.
Tell me what's made it a wild ride.
Wow. Well, you know this, the pathway of being a business owner, the pathway of stepping out and starting anything, there's a lot of challenge in it. And I think even if you step out with a lot of faith, your faith is going to get tested. You're going to get rocked along the way. So to me, that's created a lot of learning, a lot of growth personally, a lot of battles, and that continues to this day. And I think like as we kind of get into, as we talk about, it's like I'm going to share today my 15 top lessons right now as far as just these were things I've journaled on. These are things that have shaped me a lot over these past few years. And I think that some of those challenges will come up as we talk about this.
Yeah, those are the things that you've learned as you did the hard miles. What's number one on your list? And are these in order, or are these just as they came to mind?
These were as they came to mind, but I think that this first one unlocked a lot of other things.
Okay. What
So
is that
number
one?
one is number one, if you want to be creative, then think inside the box.
Unpack that for me.
Yeah.
Think inside the box.
Yeah. So as soon as you start having a creative conversation, somebody goes, "Great, I love to think outside of the box." And I totally understand where people are coming from, but what most people are missing is that they've got a lot more that they have resources and access to within the current framework, within the current structure. So when I was working at Salt, we're looking at like how do we begin to impact, influence, and how do we begin to get creative at another level? Well,
Hmm.
we can try a bunch of different things, but one of the things that we did early on was we tapped into probably 40 to 50 alumni voices through creating a magazine. You were one of our contributors through that. Was that magazine the end all be all for salt? No. But what it did was it began to have more voices contribute in. It began to have more people speak into it. It began to have people have a little bit of ownership. And so most of the time, like leaders kind of think this is about me. They don't want it to be about them, but they don't want to put extra burdens on others. And so if it's to be, it's up to me. I'm the person that they're coming to see, when in reality, people want to contribute. And so, instead of looking and trying to find 10,000 things that you don't have access to, and then you start playing a game like, well, if we had this many resources, we could do this. You don't have all of those resources. Especially if you're a young business, you got to be scrappy, right? So if you want to be creative, then think inside the box. Look at what you do have and start there.
That's really good, especially as a startup and a solopreneur. What are your strengths? What are the things right there? That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's really all right. So 2 is this: rest is the secret weapon of the wise. Yeah. I'm a year and a half into leader growth. And one day, feel God tells me you need to go on sabbatical. Like, sabbatical?
Yeah.
I'm doing something.
Yeah. I got to earn a living.
Yeah. So this lesson for me was formative because it made me stop. But what I learned was that my rhythms were just off, right? So the first couple weeks, because it was like a 5-6 week thing, I went through a process, checked in with some mentors, and it was like, yeah, like, ask God for a sign on this. And the next person, I said, God, if you want me to do this, just have somebody talk to me about it today. And the next call that I had was a guy in the coaching world who goes to Montana every year, Alan Spees. And Alan, yeah, we just kind of get away every year for like 4 or 5 weeks and, go up there. And I'm like, this is crazy, because
Not
I feel like,
hours, but weeks or days. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I'm not telling everybody you should go on a sabbatical, but I think more people should stop, and maybe you should consider stepping away so that you can get your rhythms and routines right. Remember, like in the Jewish world, in the creation account, it said there was evening and there was morning on the first day, evening and morning the second day. And what that's really saying is that you work from rest. So you start with rest. The Jewish day starts in the evening. The American day starts at midnight. But the Jewish day starts in the evening because the idea is that you start with rest. So I think rest is the secret weapon of the wise.
Well, we hear that. We think about John Mark Comer and practicing away, and it sounds super spiritual. But that's not just for your spiritual life. I mean, that's for your personal life. I think that's also for your professional life. When you're at your best, that you've got to work from a position of rest, not earn your rest from just working hard,
Yeah.
which I think is probably a Western mindset.
Yes.
And then we wonder why we're burnt out, we're anxious, and then we have depression, and then all the other things that come along with that. And I think that's probably why that's number one and number two on your list right there. It's like that one, the position of rest is really important. That is a secret
Yeah.
weapon.
There is a link to it as well. It's very difficult to be creative if you don't rest.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How do you see that play out in the creative space? When you're an author, you've written a couple of books. Is it hard to write and be creative when you're stressed?
It's incredibly hard to create anything when you're stressed. Or creation requires focus. Creation requires diligence. And that doesn't have to be nonstop 6-8 hour diligence to one thing, but maybe it's a 30-minute, 1 hour writing block. And a lot of people can't disengage from the other things to really focus in. So
To get a good hour in.
yeah, I think even if you're in a stressful time, like I wrote Unstuck while COVID was at the very beginning. It's a very stressful time. But what I did was I still created a writing rhythm and structure. And so I knew that for 30 minutes or some days, 1 hour, like I'm writing during this time. And the gift of that was I wasn't going to connect with anything else. I'm completely locked in on writing in that time. And when you're completely locked in, now you can really give yourself to something. And I think a lot of people, because we're not locked into one area, our focus is stolen. But the other side of that is if you don't rest, it's really difficult to focus. If you're on 3-4 hours of sleep every night, it's very difficult to get to that deeper place of work. Carve it out, take time, rest.
That's good. Really good.
Yeah.
Hit me again.
All right. So number 3. Okay, here's the tension, if you will. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Number 3 is this: you can work harder than you are working right now.
That's not just opposite what you just told me.
Yeah, you can work harder than you are working right now. And right now, this is a big problem. There are a lot of people who haven't found the extra gear on the inside because they've never gone there. They have not gone through the process of finding out how gritty life requires you to be.
Is that a generational thing you're saying, or is it
I
more
think
to it than that?
I think sometimes it's generational. I also think, like right now, one of the great things is John Mark Comer, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, during kind of that COVID era. That book comes out, blows up. People start thinking, okay, we got to prioritize rest. And the pendulum swings. You start hearing it, people just start talking about rest everywhere. And rest is important. In fact, it's the secret weapon of the wise. And simultaneously, some people think that rest is just chilling all the time. Rest means way more when you work hard. Your life means way more when you work hard. And so a lot of people don't know that they're designed to work. They haven't found their own creative output. They haven't found what it's like to really contribute, and they're dissatisfied and they're blaming other things. And they say, I'm burned out. You might not actually be burned out. You may Yeah, you just need to give yourself to work for a while. One of my favorite times of life when I look back at it, and this was a hard time of life, okay? But there was a time I had moved over to Africa, quit my job. I came back, and I'm trying to make things work here. I was working at, like I said, Starbucks, and then I worked at the Apple Store as well. I was doing both of those. And then there was a time when I was doing those two, and then as well, I was waking up at like 3:30 in the morning 2 or 3 days a week to peel potatoes. I'm not kidding. I was actually in a place peeling potatoes. And some of these days I was starting at, 3:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and I was closing the Apple store at like 10:30, getting home at 11, after you do all the back of house cleaning and everything else there. And I get back and I'm completely worn out. And that season of life is so important because no, I don't live in a 3:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. day-to-day rhythm. But I found out that I have a gear. I found out I get there if I need to. And so when things are difficult, when things are challenging, knowing that you can go up a level,
Right.
you need to challenge yourself, especially like if you're a millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming up, like go to bed tired, like work really hard, push yourself harder, find out what's inside of you, because you can work harder than you are right now. And a lot of people go, no, this is it. Try it. Lock in. Put your phone away, put everything else away, lock in, find out what's possible when you just go 14, 16 hours in a day. It's amazing.
You got some focus, and I like what you said. You didn't do that all week. There's a couple of days that you did do that. And so, just like the gears in a transmission in a car, man, you need to go through all those gears, not just, you can't live in overdrive, and you also can't live in park either, and that rhythm be sustainable.
If you're going to work hard, just make sure that you Sabbath hard.
Yeah.
You can do both.
Number 4.
All right. Number 4 is this. This is a very personal one for me. Connection is more powerful than the feeling and fear of rejection. Connection is more powerful than the feeling and fear of rejection.
Feeling of and fear of is what I heard when you're saying that. So it may not be rejection, it may be perceived rejection.
Yeah. And sometimes it's very real rejection. One of the things that happens in life is if you're going to grow, if you're going to expand, there are going to be chapters where your life is going to change drastically. Like I bet if we look back over 30, 40 years, you may have some close friends. I've never even asked you this. You may have some friends from, 30, 40, 50 years ago that you were running with that you're running with now. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few people who moved in different seasons and you started running more with some of those people and some of the people before moved out. I think that you're going to grow, you're going to expand, but with that, sometimes people are going to grow and expand and they're going to move away from you. And what that's going to feel like sometimes is going to be rejection. Sometimes it's going to be when you're wanting to bring other people into your life and you're going to feel rejection there. So
Well said.
I think that this one's very real. I think a lot of people feel this one keenly. They don't want any part of it. And I get it because I mean, I went through a very, very difficult season of life kind of around this as a theme. And the biggest thing that I did at that time was I pushed people away. I didn't want to feel that kind of pain. I didn't want to feel that kind of sting. And at the end of the day, you got to go, what's this all about? And what makes us grow, what really makes us thrive is connection.
And some of the darkest days that I experienced, and there was a time that I went dark for a while and no one saw me, but that was for a season. That wasn't forever. We weren't created to live in isolation. Um, yeah, that connection is powerful. And during COVID, there was a lot of isolation that was not self-imposed; it was imposed on us. And I think we're seeing a lot of that with social anxiety. A lot of my kids' friends, I don't want to go to that deal. I said, I don't want to go to that school prom or that school dance. And so we see the effect of that. But we were created to live in relationship.
We are. And one of the things I learned recently, by the way, for people who go, man, I really deal a lot with social anxiety. One of the things that's interesting is in your body, anxiety and excitement, they operate in a very similar way. And so sometimes you might actually be excited about something, but what you're familiar with is anxiety. And so in our brains, we go back to, I must be feeling anxious. No, actually, I'm just excited about this. So if you shift that and you say, what if I'm actually kind of excited about this time? What if I'm excited about spending time with people? It completely changes how you show up, how you spend time with others, and even how you're showing up in that process yourself. Like so often we talk about the time in the room. Often what affects your time in the room is your drive there. If you're anxious the whole time, if you're focused on it as anxiety, that can put you into a negative headspace because now you
Mhm.
start asking, what if this goes wrong? Excitement, very similar, but it begins to ask other questions. It's like, well, what could happen? What could be good? What
What could
might
go right? What could I be excited about?
what could go right? Changes our lives when we start focusing on that. Yeah.
Am I asking myself the right questions? Am I focusing on the right things? Because the things that I think about, there goes my mind and my emotions. And then if it keeps on running down that track, then my behavior reflects that as well. Number five.
Number five, Saul's armor only fits Saul. There's a little nuance in this. So we're ultimately shaped by stories. This comes from the story of David and Goliath. But before David goes out and fights Goliath, he has a meeting with King Saul, and King Saul puts him into King Saul armor. And it doesn't fit David. David is like, how do I approach this? How do I show up and fight a battle that I ultimately need to win? But I can't do it your way, Saul. Here's the reality that I think a lot of people discard. Saul's armor is actually great. It's really good.
For Saul.
And it fits Saul well. The reason that people are tempted to try to do things like everybody else is
Mhm.
because the way they're doing it, it's a lot more attractive than the way you feel in this moment. The clips that you see online, like you see that and you go, oh man, that person is so smart. They're incredibly eloquent. They're ripped. They're however you would describe it. So you
Mhm.
start to kind of fear to try to be like somebody else instead of embracing the unique design that God's made you with. And when we do that, we're beginning to try to fit in. And the irony of fitting in is that when you're trying to fit in, you can't.
Has there been a time that you've tried to put on Saul's armor?
A lot of my life, brother.
Hmm.
A lot of my life. I'll give you one from a couple years ago. One of my friends uh, suggested this. This is a crazy story. Are you ready? I told a friend this story, couldn't believe it. But one of my friends was like, you know what? I see you in this next chapter of life, next season of life. I think you're just like in a black t-shirt, jeans, and probably wearing some Jordans. Like, okay, black jeans or black t-shirt, jeans, and Jordans. But all the people in the business world, they're all dressing nicer.
They're all buttoned up, aren't they?
They're buttoned up, or there's like a look. Even if it's like athleisure, there's still like a look.
Right.
And I'm kind of like working through this whole thing, and then this guy, friend of mine, I don't tell him any of this, but the dude tells me, and he goes, "Hey, can you meet up?" After asking me what my shoe size was a month ahead of time, meets up with me and gives me quite a few pairs. I won't go into how many, but quite a few pairs of Jordans.
Oh, wow.
So here's the real challenge. Now I got the thing that I feel like I'm supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
what's natural to me, how I would show up anywhere. And then I got this other part of me that's like, well, you should fit in.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in this room. You're going to be in this setting. There are places, and if I'm speaking somewhere, I always give the owner of that conference, whatever it may be, the opportunity to be able to say, dress like this. But if they don't have a strong preference, this is what I'm coming as.
You're not coming in the Navy suit?
Not that
Not your first
I do
choice?
like a suit. I like a suit, Todd, but I found that, where I'm at currently, show up as you are. This is how I am. This is just kind of who I am in life. And part of accepting that I'm not wearing Saul's armor is that I don't fit everybody.
You're not Saul. You're David.
Goes well with the name.
It
I think a
does.
lot of us are trying to fit everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to impact people that they're not even our people. Like somebody else is going to influence them. Stop trying to reach everybody. Like just focus on the people in front of you. Focus on the people you connect with. You don't have to, you don't have to be everything. You just kind of lay the burden down and be who you are. Or as everybody talks about today, be authentic.
And it's hard to be who you are and be authentic when you don't know who you are to begin with, because you spent that whole time trying to put on someone else's armor.
And sometimes for people, that's the moment that they start to understand who they actually are, is when they take the armor off. Leads to number 6. I'll give you
Hit
point
me.
6.
Hit me.
Leadership lesson 6. You're not a big deal, and that should free you up. You're not a big deal, and that should free you.
My kids, my family tell me that all the time. Not a very big deal.
Don't worry, Todd. I wasn't saying that about you. You're a big deal because you get to see a bunch of other stuff. But I think like for people who are wearing Saul's armor, part of the reason is because we're trying to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Great NBA moment in the playoffs the other day. LeBron yelling at Luka in a team huddle. He says, Luka, be who you're meant to be. Don't try to fit in, fit out. Start saying that. Don't try to fit in, fit out.
Sit out.
So you're not a big deal, and that should free you up. Even Luka, who was a big deal to Dallas, wasn't big enough to not get traded. He did get traded, right? So I think anybody in life, sometimes we can get so focused on our own narrative. We get so focused on how we feel in the room, how people are responding to us. We kind of make it about ourselves. And it's unfortunate. When you understand you're not a big deal, you can just be with people. It's so freeing.
Yeah, it's not just humbling, which is healthy for everyone around you. It's also healthy for you because you can just be and not try to live up those expectations.
Yeah, and you stop trying to, fit into Saul's armor or somebody else's armor, do pick battles that aren't your battles. Like you just walk up and you're like, oh, okay, I think that this one's mine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go after this, and I'm going to do it in the way that's natural to me. Along with that, as well as if I'm not focused on being a big deal, that reminds me that the people in front of me, they actually are. I think when you sit and you go, okay, the big focus in life is not me, but the focus is them. When you make that shift, becomes really interesting because now, like, you become a really good listener. You become very curious. You become very interested in others. You're looking at how you can help others. You're looking at, maybe a way that you could add a little bit of value into their life. How could you go out of your way to do it? Because you really think that they're a big deal. It's a big deal to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I think that comes with maturity. I think that's hard to, I think it's rare for someone to do that in their 20s, though it's not impossible. I think the maturity comes in your 30s and 40s and 50s, that you're not believing all your own press clippings and maybe just being the hero of your own story.
Yeah. One of the things that's crazy about press clippings too is that, like, you could actually kind of like, you could put them up a few years ago. Right. I mean, like that's how everybody got it, was newspaper clippings. Like, we put them on walls. We could, like, news happens so quickly now. It's
Yeah.
here and it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to tell somebody, about something you did like a few weeks ago or months ago or years ago, or even sometimes yesterday, it's like, okay, cool. And at the same time, there are 10 million other things happening. So what are we doing now?
So much is vying for our attention. And that
It's
goes
just
back.
this up.
Yeah. It's so easy to be distracted and missing out on good things because we are distracted. I think it's where it goes back to, operate from a position of rest, because, we can just go through brain rot on all the things that stimulate us, from the news to sports and just endless scrolling, and nothing has any meaning or value because we're just inundated with information.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's good. So you're not as big a deal as you think you are.
Yeah. But that leads us to point number 7. You ready for this one, Todd?
I'm holding on, sitting down.
Actually, like, I'm good. We're going to call it at 6. It was a good. No. So here we go. Number 7 is, you are a big deal and you need to treat your life as such.
It's like you're talking about identity there.
Yeah, you're a big deal. So
Where'd
what
that lesson
happens?
come from?
I think wasted moments. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It's great to talk about a podcast while you're on a
Our
podcast.
podcast.
Yeah, it's pretty meta. But this guy was talking about, he's at a point, motivational speaker, all that. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars in his lifetime. He's doing very well by every standard. But he said, if you could take everything that I've made, everything that I've acquired, and he's kind of late, he's early 60s, I guess. If you could take all of those things, if I could take all of that and then I could trade it to be 25, I would trade it right now. Because the one thing I cannot buy is more time. What he's saying in that is something really deep, which is a deep appreciation, not just for acquisition and success and all of those things, but a deep appreciation for life. I think just the reality of, like, waking up and you're like, oh my gosh, I have an opportunity to live fully alive today.
How am I going to do that? We both have 24 hours. How are we going to spend it?
Do a little deep dive on, how many cells your body has. Do a little deep dive on how large the universe is. It's also interesting, like, the impact that your life can have on somebody else's. So I think if you show up and you care about others, you have an opportunity to shape them. And I think at the same time, the moments that I would regret the most, just moments where I didn't treat people like they were a big deal. So those are the moments, like decisions where I'm like, man, I would have, like, spent different, or I would have, okay, fine. But the moments where I go, you know what? I didn't understand how big all of this is. I was too focused on me. There you go.
That's good. God says we are a big deal.
Jesus
Way too many
dies
of
for
us
you.
don't believe it.
Jesus dies for you. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, we just celebrated Easter this past week. That gets overlooked and diminished with a secular holiday, but it's a very big deal.
Huge.
Number 8, what do you got?
Welcome people in by letting them see your flaws.
It's hard to do.
I think it's pretty scary for a lot of us.
We got a lot of self-preservation.
I mean, I'll share this part. I won't share all of it, but I'll share this part. You had a better podcast conversation for us to have today. And I was like, I'm not ready to talk about that yet. What was it again? It was a great title.
I don't even remember, but yeah, it was, things you can learn going through the hard miles. And you were really honest. You thought I'm in the middle of some hard miles. So I can't have that
Yeah.
conversation yet. And I
Yeah.
get it. I couldn't have done this 9 years ago. I mean, you were
Yeah.
out of your mind crazy if you thought I was going to do this 9 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah. It's like there's an acknowledgement, I think, as you go along and when you run into some difficult things in life. There's a danger that we live in today. And it's where you talk about the things, but you don't actually get into the things. You don't let yourself feel it. And I think that the danger for me when I've done that in the past was probably that one, I hadn't done any work around it, or I just kind of like glossed over it. Two, it had already healed. And so I was in a place where I could talk about it. But what I came to on this was I was like, man, I think it's like one of the shifts that's happening in my life is you talk about your scars and you can show them, but don't just open up about your wounds to everyone. And it's not because other people aren't going through something like it, but it's a simple idea, and it's that people are in that place. I didn't used to think that, Todd. And so it kind of goes back to this idea of identity and value, of like understanding your own significance changes the way that you welcome people in, or sometimes you draw a boundary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So within this idea right here is welcome people in by letting them see your flaws. I've talked to some people and they're like, I'm kind of, this is who I am. I'm vulnerable from the jump. And sometimes I'm like, don't share everything up front. Like, please don't share everything. Like, that's not a good habit for everybody to get all of that. Like,
Yeah. You've got to have some discretion. You've got to have some discernment and know how much to say. So, yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, but I think it does, though, just to for people able to see that. I mean, just be authentic. I don't
yeah,
have to have it all together.
wow,
Balance is it should not be the goal. Being real and be authentic. But I think
mm,
being real with yourself and knowing what those issues are, actually feeling those pains, acknowledging those, and then I work through those. I mean, that's where the growth happens. I mean, that's where the character's developed. But it is a painful process.
what you're talking about there may actually be the more excellent way.
How so?
I think that there is sometimes this pursuit of excellence in a qualitative state.
Hmm.
And so I get to this level. And so it's almost like I want people to see the finished product.
Hmm.
So see me at like this level of excellence.
But not how the sausage was made, not how the
Yeah.
mosaic was made. There's a lot of breaking, a lot of cracking, a lot of painful. I love the coffee metaphor because, man, there's not anything quick and easy about coffee, from how it's grown to producing it, to getting it down the mountain, to get it exported. I mean, every step of the way is painful, but you get to the end and you're going, oh man, that smells good, that tastes good.
Hmm.
But it is there's a lot of steps in that process. I mean, just like the 15 things that we're going through here, these things don't happen quick or easy, or happen overnight, and not yes, no, black and white answers to questions.
Yeah. That's that's a great point, which kind of leads us into number 9, by the way.
Yeah, hit me.
All right. Number 9 is use your voice, find your voice, grow your voice. I found that sometimes I've wanted to kind of go to like a point of intellectual enlightenment on an area of my life before putting in reps.
Mm.
So sometimes we want to like find something ahead of time so that then we can walk in confident. I found that it's often when I use my voice in a room where, okay, so let's make it a little bit more practical. I've never led a team meeting. Now I'm going to start leading team meetings. All right, so what does this actually look like? Well, the only way that I'm going to find my own voice and how I lead is I'm going to have to start using it first. I'm going to have to be uncomfortable first. Use your voice, Find your voice and then grow your voice. What we're kind of talking about here is this whole idea of imposter syndrome. And one of the great quotes that I saw recently said, "You don't have imposter syndrome. You just don't have experience."
That's good. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah, like of course you can call it I have imposter syndrome, but maybe you just haven't led a team meeting and maybe you need to give yourself room to, lead 12, 20, 25, and now you've actually got enough time that you can start to assess how is this going. You're always going to be making some edits and improvements, but give yourself a little bit of time, find out who you become.
Yeah. That's called experience. That just takes time.
Yeah.
You can't expect someone in their 20s and 30s to have all the experience of someone in their 40s and 50s because they haven't had the experience yet. They haven't had the reps. So much of the knowledge that we've gained is because of painful experiences.
Hey, and by the way, if you are in your 20s, if you are in your 30s, don't miss this one. You don't have to talk like you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s. In fact, if you try to talk to a 50 or 60-year-old in your 20s like you're already there, you're going to get less time with them. Show up, be humble, be curious, let them guide you, but you don't like, even if you have the cognitive information around that, even if you have head knowledge, you don't have reps to prove it. So it doesn't matter if you got the right answer, cool. Do you understand the deeper level of that? And that's where you get wisdom. And then the deeper level under that, and that's where the book of Proverbs would talk about understanding. Yeah, give yourself a little bit of time.
And enjoy your 20s and your 30s. You've
Because a
got,
lot of people don't.
yeah,
A lot of
that's one
people
of them.
place too much pressure on themselves. I remember hearing Lance Humphreys say this. I was at a fireside chat. This changed my life, Todd. Lance
Conversations
said,
with Lance will do that.
"It will." He said, "What if you took the pressure off to peak by the time you were 35?" I was 32. And I remember at the time, I was like, first run of business, my first thought was, I would shut my business down right now. But I couldn't do it because I had to prove that I was there, that I was, and I wanted, and I look back at it and how gracious, there was a graciousness to the men that were in that room who were in their 50s and 60s.
What if you peaked at 65 or 75?
I hope so.
What does that look like? That's good.
Todd, I would give an answer, but I don't have a clue what that would look like yet.
Well, we don't because we can't because we're in our 40s and 50s, right? Are you 40 yet? You're 30s. See, I'm trying to wish your life away.
I'm 30s. I'm the 30s telling the 30s and 20s not to sound like they're 50 and 60. So I'm probably talking like I'm 50s. Silly.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, you know what, wear your armor, not Saul's.
Great point.
We got a lot to offer in the season that we're in.
Yes.
Number 10.
Number 10, the distance between you and your goal is often your perception.
Say that again. That was good.
The distance between you and your goal is often your perception.
How's that played out in your life?
Things often take about as much time as we expect that they will, if we're diligent.
But if you've got the perception and the mindset that you're willing to do the hard work, it's worth the effort.
That's a great other side of it. That's a great other side. Because what I found is that a lot of people see that their goal, it feels so far off that they say, I don't think I'll get there for another 3 to 5, 10 years. You've already defined when you're going to get there.
You've already pushed it on down the
You've
road.
already- yeah. Perception is a big thing. You can do this one. You can do this in a lot of areas, but I found that we can often accelerate our goals if we're willing to put in some hard work. And kind of goes back to some of the things that we talked about earlier. Hard work, and then also be willing to raise our hands and say, I need help.
Right. There's some things that David's really good in that I am not. Instead of me trying to figure it out, what if I just collaborate with David?
Yeah. It's a great point. And one of the pieces of advice that I would give to somebody who is, maybe early 20s on this is be specific about what you need. And if you don't know what you need, you can be specific about that too. So if I need like actual advice on what to do in the gym because I've never been there, then I need to ask somebody, show me how, somebody who's qualified. And if I'm at a point where I'm like, man, I kind of want to start getting in shape, but I'm not sure where, like, where do I even start? There are 10,000 different views on this. Where do I start? Do I start at the grocery store? Do I start in the gym? How do I get past the anxiety of going there? Can I do home workouts? Like all of the different questions that come up instead of just saying, hey, I don't even know where to start. Like help me with the whole vision of this. And then something can guide you through. So sometimes I'll have somebody, I've got guys sometimes in their 20s and love them. And sometimes they'll reach out and it's not just like, can we connect? But sometimes I can tell that they want to ask something, like, can I get some advice? But they don't want to ask it because it's a little bit scary because it's going to show like, I don't know something. That's okay. Like, just be specific and say, hey, I need help with fill in the blank. You, you don't need help from, a mentor with motivation. You don't need help with like you can get that from Jocko Willink. Like you need help with the specific area of like, this isn't going well. Please help me.
That's how you gain wisdom. You ask good questions and you find someone that you admire that's doing that thing well, or at least doing it better than you are.
The distance between you and your goal is often your perception. And if you get people around you, they can help you accelerate. Like a lot of the success that I think that I had, whatever level of success I have had, probably has been largely due to the people around me.
You can have exponential growth because you say no to a lot of other things and you get a lot more focus, like you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. It can be as simple as that. Yeah.
And the next one may fall into that too. Number 11.
Number 11, hurry up.
I heard the volume growing up. I think
Go back and
I also noticed how you need to find another gear, Todd. That's what my cross country coach called me. And I was Danny Diaz. Hey, I got one gear, coach.
cross country.
I
Cross
got two
country.
speed. I got two gears, coach. On and off.
On and off. That is cross country in my mind, though. It's just like we just got to go at this speed. Somebody from cross country, please guide me because I don't know enough about it. All right, so hurry up. Here it is. Like, you have less time than you think you do. Stop going through the same ideas and the same rituals and the same conversations, whether it's in your coffee shop, whether it's at your living room table, a coffee table, wherever it may be. There's this idea of like, well, I think maybe like in 6 months I'll start doing that. Start now. Hurry up. Like, and if you can close the distance between the initial idea and then beginning first action, you really start moving towards something with a lot more momentum.
What's the natural next step? What's something I can do today when I get off a call with you or walk away from this conversation?
And when people live in their heads, it's brutal because they overthink it. You overcook it.
Yeah. And it's not failure. It's what did I learn here? Yeah, I may not have gotten what I expected, but you know what? I didn't have a point of reference. So what do I do the next time here?
Yes. 5 years later, they're like, man, things could have been wildly different if I would have. And they start overthinking all the things that they wish they would have done in the past. How do you move out of that place? Action. That's it. Start moving.
Start moving.
Yeah.
Number 12.
Number 12 is give yourself some time.
Sometime.
Okay, so I want to kind of put the tension here between these two ideas. One is hurry up. You need to get good at getting things done quickly. That's what I would say to younger leaders. You need to become exceptional at getting things done. And then secondly, you also have to give yourself some time for you to develop. We kind of talked about that earlier. It's that idea of like, what if I peak at 75? In that case, like, okay, what does it look like for me to give myself some time? So I would encourage people to give yourself a little bit more time on who you're becoming, like big picture, and on some of the action steps that you should be taking. You should hurry up on those. Hurry up on the action steps. Give yourself some time to develop, to grow. I guarantee you, like, my friends who might be listening in, you're 25, 26, over the next couple of years, what you're going to see, if you're not already seeing, is some of your friends are going to start getting exponentially more successful by every worldly standard than you will be. And
It
at
doesn't
that
end
point,
in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s either.
yep. And so like if you're always kind of playing the game of either like I've got to catch up in becoming to who they are and where they are, or the other side is I think I'm just going to mail it in. Both those are dangerous. Have a clear vision about who you want to be. Allow that to shift as time goes on. Give yourself some time and focus and effort towards that.
Maybe not just time, but also some grace. I'm thinking about my buddy I go hiking with in the mountains, and the standing joke was, how much longer? 20 more minutes. 20 more minutes.
Oh.
And we 20 more minutes ourselves up to the top of the summit and where we're going. And so the speed of the journey is the speed of the journey. It only took me about 3 years to quit asking him that question.
Mm-hmm.
He was my guide on these trails I've never been on. 20 more minutes.
It only
It
took
takes
3
as
years.
long as it takes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. It takes what it takes.
Yeah. And that's okay,
Yeah.
because you may be geared a little different than I am. And even if you're doing something together, you know what? I may need to go a little slower than someone that doesn't have the experience. Or, you know what? I may need to kick it up a gear because I'm with a different group of guys. And I don't want to be the laggard, but it takes as long as it takes. And that's tough in a culture that measures everything
Mm.
from speed to length to financials to return on investment. That's a good
Mm.
one. Give yourself some
That's
time.
good. Give yourself some time on that. And part of giving yourself time doesn't necessarily mean just kicking back and doing nothing. It can be at times, but part of giving yourself time might be, you know what, this is where I am. I got to get in some different rooms. Like get in the rooms where the conversation's quicker than you're comfortable with. That like you probably notice this, that there are some people and they just move at a different pace. In Oklahoma, interestingly enough, often people who move at a quick pace, sometimes they speak slowly. So don't let just, quick talkers
Mm-hmm.
pull you in on that.
I'm
But
thinking
just
about our
reckon.
buddy Gary Brooks while you say this.
Tell me a little bit more, Todd.
I mean, talk about a guy that knows about movement and getting things done, but man, he talks very deliberate, very thoughtful, and he hasn't missed out on the learning opportunity and the pain points, and very thorough, very thoughtful, but he's not just sitting around either.
Not sitting around. Sometimes it's the speed of the conversation, and sometimes as well just gauge and notice the speed of the person. Gary Brooks has a certain velocity in life that he's just moving through life at, and you go, okay, that's somebody that I want to be around. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good. Yeah. Number 13.
Number 13, hey, while you give yourself some time, number 13 is important. You need a map, you need a mirror, and you need a journal. Here we go. All right, so I'll just share this one quickly, but you need a map, which is where you're going. I think that sometimes people say things like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. I totally understand, but I'm driven by destinations. I actually like getting to the next place. So I'm going like if it's okay, I'd like to enjoy both. And in my experience, I can. So I want to do both simultaneously. If I'm going from LA to New York is that final destination. But there are many destinations on the map as I'm getting there.
I can also
And so
enjoy.
that you can enjoy.
And the people that I'm with.
And even that when you get from, LA to Albuquerque, that you're moving in the right direction. And so sometimes we're like, man, I'm not in New York yet. Yeah, but you got to Albuquerque. Recognize that. The second thing is you need a mirror because that's going to tell you where you are. And a lot of times this is the leader's downfall is I don't take time to look in the mirror. The most important person you lead is self.
Right.
The day that I don't lead myself, and I think self-leadership is the most challenging.
Absolutely. We are our hardest client.
It's a great quote.
I just made that up. I made it up for 40 years of learning experience. The hardest part of that is the self-awareness piece.
You can include that in your book. I look forward to
Okay.
reading it. Tales of Base Camp. Base Camp, the summit. We are
Yeah.
our hardest climb.
And
So
a
you
mirror
need a
is not
map.
judgmental. A mirror is just reflecting.
It's a nice way to say it. Other thing that you need though is you need a journal, because when you're there in the map and you go, okay, cool. So like I've gotten from LA and now it's not just Albuquerque, but now I've gotten all the way to OKC,
Mhm.
all the way to Indianapolis, all the way to Louisville, wherever it may be on that journey. This is one of the biggest things that I see is people forget who they were even 12, 18, 36 months ago,
Mhm.
and all of the work that they had to do the past 18, 36 months. So you'll see somebody who's like putting in time, putting in a lot of hours, stacking it up. You're like, this is fantastic. And they're like, yeah, it's not enough, because all they do is look in the mirror. And so having a journal to be able to go back and see, oh, I wasn't doing as well.
And
Or
you're
go
also
back.
journaling the progress that you made. And I've covered
Yes.
a lot of territory. I'm in Indiana now. I'm in Iowa, wherever, and I left California. There has been a lot of progress.
Yes. That's exactly it. So if we have a map, a mirror, and a journal with us, and if we use them, if we use each of them consistently, it's going to help us grow.
Yeah, which is probably where you've learned number one through number 13 is what you're about to tell me on number 14 here.
Number 14, here it goes. For me, one of my biggest lessons is wisdom is found in a multitude of counselors. So a delineation I like to make here is it doesn't say knowledge is found in a multitude of counselors. When Solomon wrote this proverb, he didn't say that. He said wisdom.
Mhm.
Wisdom is found in a multitude of counselors. You know this because you see this, like when people only get a perspective or two perspectives, they're often choosing the voices that sound the most like them.
Like their own, right?
So a multitude of counselors, it teaches you something as well, because it teaches you to think differently. And that's one of the big challenges right now, I think, with AI, is that you have access to knowledge so quickly that you don't always have to weigh it. If you're using chat, which I use Chat GPT all day, but if you're using it and you don't push back, you're getting its lightest, easiest format that's kind of designed towards the person that it's noticed that you are. It reads you, it gets to know you, but you're not getting a lot of different perspective through AI. You may be getting some, but what you don't get as well is you don't get nuance.
And you
And
don't
it
get
doesn't.
the depth of the wisdom from the life experience.
And to that point, maybe in the future this changes, but right now, what it is, I'll tell you what you don't get. You don't get, go back to Gary Brooks. You don't get the opportunity to sit there, ask a question, that person advise you, and then them ask you a question. And while you're uncertain, have to sit there as they stare at you. I think one of the greatest ways that you grow in wisdom is to have older people stare at you while you don't have answers.
That's the paradox. That's the tension. The Gary goes, God, I don't know if I believe that. And then it gets quiet for about 2 minutes. I don't know if I believe that either, Gary. I said it with a lot of
Yes.
conviction when it came out of my mouth.
And to that point, though, wisdom is found in a multitude of counselors, which means that I'm going to talk to a Gary Brooks and a Todd Vincent. And then, like, I got some other calls I got to make as well. I remember one
And
time
ultimately, what does God say about that? Have I gotten in the Word and wrestled and asked God, or am I going to go to you and Gary and all these other people that I admire? Am I going to go to them first? I mean, yeah, it's both them because you're getting wisdom, but at the end,
Mhm.
whose opinion trumps all the others?
That's a great point, Todd. And if I can just zag on that for a moment as well, because I agree. And I want to give one little caveat. I found this to be true in some experience in the Christian camp. People pull the God card and everybody has to shut up. Like, well, God told me. And it's like, yeah, but your behavior doesn't look like God told you to do that. And what usually happens when people live more and more in that zone, unfortunately, this is my experience. Unfortunately, I see a lot, and I've even done this myself. We start moving away from getting other perspective. Now, I'm not asking you to give me advice so that I do what you say. I'm asking for wisdom. I'm asking for perspective.
And
So
more times than not, those aren't in conflict. Even if I don't want to hear the message, if I'm seeking God and those are godly men that I admire, chances are I'm gonna get the same response, whether it's the one I actually really want when I'm being honest with myself or not. There's not confusion. There's not mixed messages there.
and if I have something really personal and go, oh man, like I feel like God said this to me, if there's a mentor that I trust, like a Gary or a Wes Lane,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to say to them only, I'm going to say, I wouldn't go out there on the streets and shout this
Mm-hmm.
currently. I really feel strongly that the Lord's led me to this. And here's the other side. I'm a man, so I might not hear correctly on it. Like, I want to acknowledge I can't hear perfectly sometimes. And so, like, does this sound like it could be, or am I totally off? And what I found as well is like showing open hands like that. A lot of times it's like, well, it seems like that's what you're getting. You have some history there. So why don't you work off of that? And as well, how about you journal through it? How about you get some more history to find out, like, am I actually getting this right? And so I think, like, even that, like, to your point, yes, because ultimately there's one opinion that ultimately should trump everything else. And if you're like, no, this is what I got, and everybody else said no, I still got to go off of what I got.
If you've got trusted advisors, those are all probably going to line up with what God's saying.
Hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully. Well, hey, bring us home. Number 15.
Number 15, love hard. Love is what makes life worth living.
Tell her where that comes from.
The danger for anybody in the world of developing leaders is to become a sage on the stage and disconnect from others. You start telling yourself a story like, well, people don't get me, or I can't really be open with people, because they're friends with one of my clients, just all these different things. But I think at the end of the day, like, you got to choose whether you're going to be in relationship with people or not, whether you're going to be open about who you are or not. I'm thankful. I got some friends, they know it all. And I think that at the end of the day, Rennie Cook said this to me a couple of years ago. He said, you can manage a process, and you can manage a lot of things in a business, but if you don't love people, I don't think you're a leader.
Yeah. Another
And
Rennie quote is that things happen at the speed of relationship.
don't you love Rennie
So,
Cook?
say
I
again?
love Rennie.
Yeah.
I said, don't
And
you
he
love?
and he says Wes Lane may have said that, but you know what? We'll give them both credit.
Okay,
But
let's.
I think that's what makes life worth living, that you do it in a community. And we've got a pretty special community here in the Oklahoma City metro. Well, the state as a whole, we've got something special here because I think, as you know, by and large, people do that really well. That's the Oklahoma standard, and that's what we're known for.
That's what
Well,
we're all about.
you've given me 15 uh, paradoxes here that have been maybe some mile markers on your journey. Is there any key or any summary of all of those that is the lesson that you've learned as you've been on this journey?
Yeah. Most important thing you can do is you got to show up, do the work. Like, we're all in process. A book I've been reading this year that I would recommend to anybody in the leadership space, any human actually, is Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Yeah, I think I've got it. It's right down here. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so I think sometimes when we talk about doing the work, people are like, yeah, I get it, but they don't necessarily have a map. They don't have a
yeah,
pathway for those. They don't know, like,
yeah.
how do I get there? So make sure, like, we're all going to have ups and downs and everything else. But at the end of the day, like, we want to do work on ourselves so that hopefully, uh, Ed Milet says this. I love it. He says, I believe that one day God shows you who you could have been, and heaven is discovering that the person you could have been all along is the person that you are, and you meet and you're basically twins.
Mm. Wow.
And I think that the only way we get there is we got to do that work on ourselves. And if we keep showing up, it's going to be beautiful, messy, difficult, painful, but at the end of the day, I believe joyful, wonderful, full of light and love experience. So,
Well, you're
I think,
speaking from experience, and you've written a couple of books. You've written Unstuck, and then you've written For Love with Joy, and you've talked about both of those on a high level. You also were sitting having coffee this last month. You're working on a third that you said was a novel.
it's business fable. It's going to be, it's business principles, but it's done through storytelling. So, yeah.
That's exciting. I um, looking forward to reading it. I
Thank you,
love
Todd.
every time we get together and get to connect, whether it's on a podcast like this or having a cup of coffee. But if some of these things we've talked about have piqued some interest in someone, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? Yeah, LinkedIn, podcast, website. What's your preferred method for connection?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find. Send me an email over at hello@davidskidmore.com.
That'll get you.
Reach out. Yeah.
Podcast is Leader Growth. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then hello and davidskidmore.com.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, brother, this is always good. I look forward to doing this face to face again. But thanks for your wisdom and uh, time together, but also just the impact that you have on our city.
Thank you, sir. And I hope that when we have a coffee, if it is after 1 p.m., it is decaf. I'm going to stay wired today because I can tell I'm up. So have a great afternoon, man. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you soon, whether it's coffee, lunch, whatever it is.
Hey, pro
Bless
tip,
you.
go get the unleaded at Eote, and it won't do you wrong.
Come on now. I love it. All right, deal.
Hey, we'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Bye.